It's nearly midnight. I'm jet-lagged, I'm really tired, but for some reason I can't get to sleep. Suddenly, I bolt upright in bed, my heart racing. I have this overwhelming sensation. I have to find my father. This is a man I haven't seen or heard from in over 25 years. I was born in England. My parents divorced when I was 10, and after which my father, Roy Bradley, disappeared from my life. My mother remarried a couple of years later, and she moved abroad to live with her new husband, leaving myself and my brother, both of us teenagers at that point, in boarding school in England. At 17, I leapt at an opportunity to come to America. Who wouldn't? And I made my own life after that. It's now 1981, and I was back in England visiting my brother and his family for Christmas, and then hence the jet lag the night before. The next morning, I tell my brother over breakfast about my midnight premonition and my intention to look for our father. He's pretty wary at first. All we really knew about our father, other than the fact that he was an ace test pilot, is that he had squandered 2 marriages and a very promising career with heavy drinking. We knew nothing about where he might be. But my brother's curiosity kicks in, and then we get to work. The first thing we do is we check the phone listing for the town where he grew up. It's about on the west coast of England, a little town called Weston-super-Mare. And we thought maybe we might find him there. No luck. Then Paul unearthed this old address for our grandparents in that town in Weston-super-Mare. It's not much to go on, but it's all I've got, and my Christmas quest is on. The next day finds me traveling west on one of England's busiest motorways in the tiniest little rental car I've ever seen, a stick shift, driving on the wrong side of the road, which I had never done before I left England. And it's snowing and getting dark. I feel I must be crazy. It would be a miracle if I make it the 100 miles to Weston. But I do, and I get there safely late in the evening. After a restless night in the B&B, I wake with this sense of optimism and hope in my chest. Am I going to find my father today? The B&B owner helpfully points me in the direction of the address, all I have, of my grandparents. As I approach the house, my heart starts beating. I have this feeling, maybe now, maybe he'll be here. But as I get closer, my heart sinks, and I realize the house is vacant. It's empty. There's a for sale sign in the window even. Now what? And just then, a neighbor steps out of the adjoining house. She's looking like I don't know what I'm doing there. And she asks, and I explain that I'm looking for Roy Bradley. Well, dear, I knew the Bradley family very well, and most of them died in the last couple of years, but I think Roy Bradley is still alive. The last I heard, anyway, and I think he's living on the south side of town, somewhere near the hospital. I thank her profusely, find my way to the car, and then navigate my way through this little sleepy town and just before Christmas, and following the signs to the hospital. And then I get there and I park, and I'm thinking, now what? Well, across the street, there was a little newsagent shop, which doubles as a post office. So feeling a bit like an amateur sleuth, I walk into the store and I say, does anybody know the name Roy Bradley? It's a small store, it's a little neighborhood, maybe somebody might know. The postmistress shakes her head. The name doesn't ring a bell. So I'm starting to walk out thinking this is just a wild goose chase. And just as I was about to walk out the door, one of the other people in the shop said, have you tried the electoral rolls? I don't know what that is, but the postmistress helpfully pulls out a stack of computer printout sheets that list all the residences in her district. And they're listed by house and street name and number, not by resident. It's not much to go on, but there I am, sitting in a corner with my finger running down the list of unalphabetized names, one page by page by page, and then suddenly, Roy S. Bradley. There was his name. It jumped off the page at me. I was so excited. It was the first tangible evidence that my father still existed. Everybody in the shop shared my excitement. And with their good wishes behind me, they pointed me in the direction of his address, very close by. And I approached this house. I'm almost running by this point. And it's an old, somewhat modest house that's been converted into flats. And a caretaker answered my knock and my inquiry for Roy Bradley. And he said, "I'm sorry. He collapsed a couple of days ago and he was rushed to the hospital. And I'm sorry, I don't know any more than that." My heart falls. Please don't let it be too late. And then at the same moment, I got goosebumps all over my body because it was exactly 2 days ago that I had that premonition to find my father. By this point, I'm running to the hospital, and I'm very quickly directed to a ward upstairs, and a nurse meets me. And she assures me that my father, Roy Bradley, is there, that they're just finishing lunch on the ward. He's there for observation for the reason for his collapse. She invites me to sit down in a little nurse's station while she brings him to me. And then the wait is over. The door opens. I'm standing face to face, looking at this elegant, elderly gentleman in a dressing gown, a little bit taller than me, receding hairline, gaunt face, very, very sort of bony and thin, and not at all like the tall, vibrant father of my memories. But then again, I was only 10 years old when I last saw him. I'm struck by the stillness of his face and his keen blue eyes searching mine. And I realize he probably doesn't recognize this 35-year-old woman standing in front of him. Just as I say, "Hello, Roy, it's Penny," he says, "Penny? Is that you? I never thought I'd see you again." At that moment, we embraced very tightly, the decades and the years sort of melting away as father and daughter met. We sat down in this tiny little nurse's station, so tight that our knees were together, and we held hands and we started talking. And there was a lot to talk about. He told me about the marriage to my mother and why it broke up, and how my mother was the one, for whatever reason, who had decided that she didn't think he should know where we were and had prevented him from finding us, even though he had tried. My moving to America hadn't helped. Throughout the rest of that day, that evening, and all the next morning, we talked. We filled in the blanks. We shone light on the lies we each had missed out on for each other. But then the time came. It was time to go. It was Christmas Eve. And I was expected and looking forward to getting back with my brother and his family and starting the celebrations. As we held each other and hugged goodbye, I said, "Goodbye, Dad." And in truth, I knew I had found my father. We started to correspond after the holidays. He was making plans to come and see me. But sadly, he never made it. He died a couple of months later from complications from alcohol poisoning. He was not quite 60. But I am so forever grateful for that midnight premonition that sent me on that search to find him. Because in finding him, I also found a huge part of myself I had no idea was missing. I also discovered a whole new family from his second marriage who have embraced me as one of their own. And most importantly, perhaps, I learned never to ignore a strong premonition. Thank you.